Hello and welcome back to my kitchen. Today we are making a silky smooth gazpacho. This is a tomato-based soup that is served chilled. And I know if you've never had gazpacho before, cold soup might sound weird, but there's something super refreshing about all of these fresh seasonal ingredients blended up and served cold with some crusty bread. I promise you're gonna love it. So there are a few really important steps to making gazpacho. The recipe itself is incredibly easy and simple. When it comes to picking your ingredients, you definitely do not want to skip the stale bread and a high quality olive oil. The stale bread might sound weird also, but this is really key to creating a really creamy soup. When this gets blended up with the olive oil, it thickens and emulsifies in a really beautiful way. And then we're also adding a splash of balsamic vinegar for that nice acidic flavor that pairs really well with the tomatoes. We'll add some water to help thin the soup out a bit. And then from there, it's all about the fresh produce. So the soup is most traditionally enjoyed in Spain during the hot summer months, both because it's really refreshing as a cold drink on a hot day, but also because of the seasonal produce. So I recommend being a little bit picky when you're picking your tomatoes and your peppers because they are really carrying the soup in the flavor department. Then we're also adding some cucumber, a shallot, and a clove of garlic, as well as a generous sprinkle of salt and pepper. And from here, we are just blending this soup up. A high-powered blender is definitely helpful here because you're going to want to blend the soup until there are absolutely no chunks left, especially from that stale bread. We want everything to get blended up evenly and smooth. Another trick I like to use is adding the stale bread to the blender first so that it has a chance to absorb all of those liquids. It just helps it to break down a little bit before we start to blend. And once your soup looks creamy smooth with no chunks remaining, you can go ahead and stop the power on your blender, and we're going to move over to a bowl with a strainer. And we are straining this soup through a mesh strainer just to help really remove any solids and make sure that we have a super, again, creamy smooth end result. Because we're using all raw, fresh produce, there are skins from the tomatoes and the peppers that can add a little bit of a grittiness to the texture of the soup. So straining it really helps to create that silky, smooth texture that you want in a liquid soup. I like to use a spatula and just kind of move the soup around in my mesh strainer to help speed up this process, because if you don't do this, you will probably be here all day. But with the help of the spatula, you can really push all of the liquid through that strainer quite quickly. And once all of your liquids have strained through, you're going to be left with kind of a paste-like consistency in your strainer. And I'm sure there are so many creative ways to use this. Just off the top of my head, I'm thinking you could add it into a soup or like a pasta dish. Surely there's lots of great fiber and flavor in this, so feel free to get creative and use it as you desire. But for now, I'm just making sure we've got as much liquid as possible strained out of there before we set it aside and move on with our soup. Technically, your soup is done and you're ready to enjoy, but it's really best served chilled. I recommend giving it at least 2 hours in the fridge. And then from there, you can serve topped with whatever you like. I enjoy doing a drizzle of olive oil, some fresh cherry tomatoes, whatever herbs you have on hand, sprinkle of salt and pepper, and then you cannot skip the crusty bread. It may sound silly, but this is definitely my favorite part, especially since we already have a loaf of stale bread. Toast some slices in a pan with olive oil to bring them back to life and enjoy.